Hi, my name's Thete. I'm a Retribution Paladin who does mythic raiding, has done for some considerable amount of time, or at least top-end raiding, whatever it's been called at various times. I've been doing guides and getting ready to do guides for Legion. I did an introductory guide for the baseline abilities of Retribution, how it's going to play in the pre-Legion patch, and that's already out there. I was putting the finishing touches to the main guide last night when Blizzard suddenly announced a load of changes. So that's shelved until the weekend when I do that again. Hope they don't make any more. But just to keep people up to date, I'm going to go over those changes now. It's going to be a bit of an ad hoc way, but at least it's keeping people up to date as to what's coming with the spec for that pre-Legion patch. So, when I brought out the first guide, it was intended as the introductory guide for the pre-patch, and it just covered baseline abilities because I felt that the baseline abilities hadn't changed for so long that they were fixed. We're getting quite close to that pre-patch. They're not going to want to change a lot, but they were still fiddling about with talents, so I left the talents to another video. And then I was literally just putting the finishing touches to said video last night. It was about to be uploaded, all the rest of it. We should have been absolutely good with those two guides for the pre-Legion patch. And then they dropped a bombshell and changed a load of things, or quite a number of things, but very significantly, certainly to the point where I would not have been comfortable with that video still being up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do an update here where I just go over those changes so that you're at least got some information, and then at the weekend I'm going to redo that video and hope that they don't change any more things, because we are getting very close. There are good and bad things to these changes, but I'm just going to go through them first of all, then we'll discuss them. So Judgment first of all. This is the baseline ability that's changed. So this is the one that sort of in a little way snookered my first video, but I put some notes up. The way it works in general is still the same. So if you haven't seen that first video, you check that out. The way it works is the same. The advantage now is that it cleaves onto another target. So if I do this, we can see that the debuff and the damage has gone onto another target. I'm just going to move away. You may get some delays here. The PTR and beta servers are absolutely shocking at the moment. Certainly during peak times and around work, that's pretty much the only times I can get on. But at the moment, the beta server's not up at all. The PTR is just terrible. I can't actually show you any gameplay. That's why I'm here. I wouldn't normally just hit training dummies. But it's just because it's absolutely appalling. Look at this. I'm a massive MS. So it cleaves to another target. Now, the upshot of that, it means we have a two-target cleavability. Before they made this change, if we had two targets, sorry, we were just hitting one target, waiting until it was dead, and then moving to another. There was nothing we could do. If you use Divine Storm, it's a DPS loss. Now that's different. Now we can use Divine Storm. I'm just double checking here. Oh, do you know what? I've said that and that's a bit dicey. Okay, at the moment we can't. This is really strange. No, we still can't use Divine Storm on two targets. How curious. But that should hopefully change when it gets into Legion. Certainly on the beta in Legion with my kit and at level cap, Divine Storm is doing more than half the damage of a Templar's Verdict, which means that we should be good using that. It does depend on traits for the Ashbringer as well, of course, but we need to bear that in mind. Hopefully they're going to retune that. They haven't finished tuning, it also has to be said, and that's going to be a big thing when I go into the next things. The other thing about the Judgment is that the debuff has been increased in length to 8 seconds. Now, if you can see here, Judgment baseline has a 12-second cooldown, but it's reduced by haste. Now, the haste I have is 13%, which is not, you know, we haven't had huge haste values in this expansion, really. But nonetheless, that means it's like 10.5-second cooldown. So it's only 2.5 seconds of downtime. So that should mean that the Judgment debuff is a lot more comfortable now for people. You should certainly be aiming to get about 3 spenders in that time, and depending on talents you can sometimes get a little bit more, so that's looking pretty good as well. So Judgment change is a definite buff and definitely welcome. In terms of other changes, One of them, now I just want to show you something with the greater blessings, because this I think is a good one. I haven't actually, this is the first time I'm testing this, so let's just try this. So I've got my greater blessings on, and I'm going to change talent. I'm going to change to Virtue's Blade. Excellent. So I've changed talent and I've still got the greater blessings. What was happening up until this new build, oops, didn't mean to do that, is that whenever we changed talents, the greater blessings would fade. Now that's pretty bad news, because we have a great deal of difficulty putting these things on in the first place, especially putting it on other players, and we don't want them sneakily changing talents, even though it's now more difficult to do that, and then losing those greater blessings, which we can't then reapply in combat. So that's also a good feature. And then the main thing they've changed as well is the Blade of Justice row. This is sort of all changed. They have tweaked the cooldowns for them, but the main one I want to talk about is Divine Hammer, because it now generates 2 holy power. Now if you haven't been keeping up with it for like the whole of alpha, Divine Hammer was generating 1 holy power and the other 2 were generating 2. Now the problem with that is twofold. First of all, when you're used to using one of these two, Virtue's Blade or Blade of Wrath, and you used to that ability generating 2 holy power, then all of a sudden you change to Divine Hammer and it's only generating 1, and it sort of messes with your mind, because you're thinking you're getting 2, so then maybe you've got 1 holy power, you use it, and then you want to use the Templar's Verdict really quickly, and you can't because you're thinking, well, what's going on? So it messes with your muscle memory, I find. So bringing it in line with the other 2 is excellent. The other thing is, it was very difficult to know, without a theory crafter's help, when you should use Divine Hammer, because normally you just want to look at the damage it does and go, okay, so it'd be useful on so many mobs, but it wasn't before, because it was generating fewer holy power, which meant you wouldn't get as many Divine Storms or Templar's Verdicts out of it, so it's quite difficult to calculate how much extra damage. Now it's much simpler, so I can see if I compare it to Blade of Wrath, which looks to be doing about 19.5k damage, compared to this, which now we have to get it over the same amount of time. That's a 6-second cooldown, so in about 6 seconds this would do what, about 16, 17. So 2 mobs, definitely Divine Hammer becomes useful, and now because it generates the same holy power, we don't have to try and factor that in. We just know it's a benefit on 2. Now that's compared to Blade of Wrath. Now Blade of Wrath, you'll notice, has a much smaller cooldown now. It's got well, with the haste I've got 6.17. I think, what would that put it at? Would that put it at about 7 seconds baseline cooldown? No, it wouldn't, would it? Yeah, that might make sense. Roughly a bit less than 7 seconds. I'm not going to get naked just to work it out, but it's got a much lower cooldown than it had before. Compared with Virtue's Blade, which, let's just put that on because it's not going to tell me there, which is 7.05 seconds, so it's like a second less, which basically means over the course of a fight, as long as we're using it off cooldown. Now this is a key thing. Whenever you're using an ability that generates holy power, whether it's Blade of Justice or whether it's Crusader Strike, if you're going for a talent that means it has the shortest cooldown, one of the big benefits of it is it means you can generate more holy power over a fight, and of course that holy power can be spent on our powerful finishers, Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm. So we have to use it on cooldown to get the best out of it, because it won't actually do as much damage. I mean, it's only doing a little more damage than Divine Hammer on a single target. So Divine Hammer, at the moment, this is not tuned. This can't be how it's going to end up. Divine Hammer is not looking that bad on single target compared to Blade of Wrath. But if we compare to Virtue's Blade, this is doing about 36,500 physical damage. Now we have to try and take account of armor on that, so that'd still work out at a bit over 20 odd thousand damage. So it's going to do more damage than this, and it's going to do more damage than that on single target. Plus we have the advantage that crits do triple damage. So each hit of this is going to do more damage, but of course there's an extra second for the cooldown. I'm just doing my mental maths. That's still going to mean it'll just shade Blade of Wrath in terms of raw damage, but again, over the course of a fight, we might make up that damage with a few extra finishers because of the extra holy power we're generating. But yet again, just remember what I said, this only works if we're using this off cooldown. We have to prioritize using this, and remember, we don't get any sensible use out of it if we're going to use it when we've got 4 holy power, because we end up wasting 1 anyway. Now what I'm going to advise, there's no point in me advising too much anyway, because this is just to keep you up to date. Obviously none of this is live yet. Before it goes live, my guide will be up. I mean, it'll probably be up next week if they don't make any more changes. It's one of these things, I'm not sure how long to hold off on it, if you see what I mean. In theory, I should probably hold off on it until they announce the date, but at the same time, I'm sure there are people who are wanting to know, who are actually testing in PTR right now, and maybe sort of want some advice. So I do want to get it out there, but I'm also very conscious of the fact that they could easily change it again, and I actually don't know why. So I'm going to discuss some of these things now, because that's sort of giving you the idea of what has changed. I do not know why they're making these mechanics changes, because I mean, I'm not saying they're not needed, but we're so close to the pre-patch. They should be into full-on tuning, and every time they change something mechanically about a spec, they've got to retune the whole thing, and that's not an easy process. This thing could end up coming out and being not at all ready, and they're not aiming for the 30th of August with this, because this becomes live when the pre-patch goes live, which is going to be somewhere between, you would think, mid and late July. So yeah, one bad thing is they're still making these changes, and the other thing is, if we look at the specific changes, I've certainly been saying for a long time that some of our key problems have been 2-target cleave has been non-existent, so it looks like they've addressed that a little bit. For my money, they're going to have to buff Divine Storm a little bit, but of course you've got to bear in mind they're not really buffing it for level 100, they're buffing it for level 110 and assuming a fully traded Ashbringer, so it might not be ideal. I mean, one of the things that's going to cause difficulty with our new toolkit is going to be some of the fights in Hellfire Citadel, and when I bring out the next guide, I've actually got a section just looking at some of the difficulties we're going to have, just to bear in mind if you're still progressing in there. If you're not, if you're clearing it, or you're clearing it on the difficulty that you're happy with, then you just do whatever, it doesn't matter. But some people still progressing are going to find a few difficulties. So yeah, to my mind, the mechanics should be sorted, and it should just be tuning now. So I'm a little worried about this. Now another thing, slightly bad, is that I'm not at all convinced that you could easily get into a situation where things are going to come too quickly, especially when we get a bit of haste. Now my experience on the beta has been that we're going to end up with quite a bit more haste. I've got 13% haste, and when I was just trying this out just a bit before, I can't dare to try, I might be able to now. It's still quite high latency, but it's quite rapid. Let's just see if I can. And this is without execution sentence. This is just me doing my stuff. Can I sneak another one out? I'm not going to risk it. I mean, I had a little bit of downtime there, but it sort of feels okay. The problem is that once we get more haste, a lot of that downtime is going to disappear completely, and there's a danger that we're going to have too much to do. And bear in mind, I could go for quicker versions here. This is Virtue's Blade. If I went for Blade of Wrath, that's quicker. If I went for Fires of Justice, that's a lot quicker, because that changes from like a 4-second recharge for Crusader Strike to like just over 2.5. I mean, if I try something like this, for example, this is rapid fire. And you can see I'm not really using that Blade of Wrath on cooldown. because everything's just coming too quickly. So, I mean, I have taken 2 options that are really quick here. Obviously, what I realistically do is just take one of those, and it shouldn't be so bad. But we'll say with more haste, we could get into some real trouble with this. So they may end up fiddling with that again. And another just issue is, and this is a good and a bad thing, this is the old model of it. When there was a period some months ago, and this is months ago now, this must have been around about April, March time, they actually had it so that Blade of Wrath had a much reduced cooldown than Virtue's Blade for single target, we're talking about, because this was always AoE. And the benefit that gives you, it allows you a choice, an actual genuine choice, because you can choose. You can say, okay, Virtue's Blade, if my rotation is maybe a little bit rapid, fine, I don't want to have to use these abilities all the time. I don't want to risk having it off cooldown. Or, if I've got a bit of time in my rotation, go for Blade of Wrath, because this allows me more holy power spenders. And the benefit of that is it's nice and flexible between single target and AoE, because those spenders could be either Divine Storm or Templar's Verdict as you need. So it makes Blade of Wrath a nice flexible talent for what a number of fights are, which is mostly single target attacking the boss, but also AoE with ads spawning in makes it ideal. So the fact that they've gone back to that, which they never should have moved away from, as soon as they moved away from it, which they did about a month ago, I think, something like that, maybe a bit more than a month ago now, so that both of these had the same cooldown, at that point you think, well, there's no difference in usage of them, so that you would choose which one to take purely based on which did the most damage. And that was what was meant, you know, in the guide I was putting the finishing touches to last night, that was what I was saying. You just need to know which one will do the more damage for you, and it was largely dependent on your crit rate, because obviously if you have higher crit, Virtue's Blade is going to do more damage. If you don't have very high crit, then Blade of Wrath would. You know, so what was the point in having 2 separate talents? So going back to this, in a theory, is good. I'm not sure that only having like a second difference between, it's not even a full second with the haste I've got, I'm not sure that that really is going to make a significant enough difference. It would be much better if there was a significant amount of difference with the time and with the corresponding raw amount of damage. And you know, it was as it used to be before, which is, this is the single target, like pure single target. It will sort of win out, maybe. This is for your AoE or cleave fights, your Divine Hammer, which it now can be in a way that it wasn't before, because it's not that it's dreadful on single target. It may still be less damage than a baseline Blade of Justice. I'm not sure about that. It may or may not be. I haven't done the maths on it. But it doesn't look bad for single target, because it could be argued maybe it's doing too much damage, I don't know. And then Blade of Wrath for your fights where it's single target, but you know what, there's some ads that will spawn every now and then that need AoEing down, and they're important too. And that's what this should be, because this is what this top row, for example, is trying to be. This is your flexible one, Final Verdict, buffs Divine Storm and Templar's Verdict, so flexible. Execution Sentence full on single target. Consecration full on AoE, except it's not. Consecration is absolutely dire. And anyone who takes this talent is in for a bad time. But I will go through that when I do the guide. We don't need to talk about that now. Same with this row in many ways as well. Your Greater Judgment is full on AoE. It is useless in single target. It's full on AoE. I say useless single target. Maybe it's sort of okay at the start of a fight, opening burst, but it's still not as good as the other two, so that makes it effectively useless. Zeal, reasonably flexible. It's decent single target. It's decent AoE as well. Might even be improved a little bit, who knows. Fires of Justice is just, you know, it doesn't really have, I suppose you could argue it has some benefit in AoE because of the fact it's got the proc that can mean your holy power spenders cost 1 holy power fewer every now and then, and also it generates, it's quicker, so that means it's generating your holy power more quickly, which means in theory you're getting more spenders out of it. And this flexibility is something that Blizzard have been trying to go for. Apologies if you can hear a dog barking. I don't know whether you can or not. Bloody thing won't shut up. It's not mine. So what I would say in summary, I know I'm rambling on a bit here. I wish I could show you some actual gameplay, but it's absolutely, I'm not even going to try. I tried so much and it's just a disaster. I can't believe I'm actually still on the server. So in summary, for 2-target cleave, it looks better. The Divine Hammer, definitely, because this is ready to go for being an improvement on 2 targets. The Judgment, as we've just found out, and I sort of should have looked at it a bit more carefully before I actually started this. So if I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to use Divine Storm on 2 targets, but I think the intention will be with this cleaving, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to make Judgment cleave the debuff onto just a second target if we're not going to use Divine Storm on it. It has to be what it's for. So you would think that even if it's not working now like this, that when we're level 110 with a full Ashbringer, it'll be tuned so that Divine Storm will be usable on 2 targets. So our 2-target cleave should be good, tuning dependent. But by changing these mechanics, which I say is a good thing in general, we're very late now, and they've got to tune it, and it's not tuned at the moment. There are issues with it still, and these are all issues I think of their own making, because they were told about these things a long time ago and they've actually gone back. This is the thing that annoys me. Like, if they were just trying things and trying things and trying things, then you would think, although I'd be saying to myself, yes, but I already said that wouldn't work, but you know, who am I? Who are they going to listen to me? But when you having to revert to an older model that was sort of working, you have to ask yourself, why have we just spent the last 3 or 4 months with a model that clearly wasn't working? Why didn't you make this change some time ago? But anyway, waffling over it, never mind that. So hopefully that's brought some people up to date. Sorry, it's just had to be this ad hoc type thing. But yeah, the servers are absolutely crap. This weekend I'm hoping to be able to get onto them, do some dungeons with them, try it out, especially on the beta more than the PTR, because we're not going to be tuned around level 100 content, even though I am going to do a guide for level 100 content, and I'm hoping to be able to get that done as well this weekend. But I'm not necessarily going to upload it as soon as it's done. I might just wait until the middle of next week and see what happens with another build, if there is one. But if you've got any comments, then put them below. Another thing I should just mention, I'm putting this in the guide as well, but I just want people to be forewarned. I did do some time ago a live seminar on Twitch for about Retribution in beta. Went really well. I am aiming to do another one specifically for the new Ret spec that will be launched with a pre-patch, because some people may, of course, have a few questions, I'm sure you will, about how it's going to play in like Hellfire Citadel. I am going to try and address some of those in the guide, but I'm also planning on doing another live Q&A on Twitch just before the pre-patch goes live. So in other words, people have had maximum time to ask questions and stuff like that, and I'll sort of prepare all those, and people can sort of come on and ask the questions live as well and get some proper feedback. And I won't know the date yet because I don't know the date of the pre-patch, but it is aiming to be a day or two before that pre-patch goes live that I'll be putting that on, so forewarned about that one. So thanks for watching. If you got to the end of this, I don't know how long it's going to be, but yeah. If you have found it useful, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as always, and until next time, I'll catch you later.